Welcome back, strangers. Today, we're going to test your memory and your sanity. Have you ever recalled something that you thought was true, but realized that you were wrong? Yet you keep insisting that it's true, but in the end, it's not how you remembered it. This has been happening to millions of people around the world, and it's known as the Mass Memory Discrepancy Effect, or more commonly known as the Mandela Effect. We're going to be discussing many examples of this strange phenomenon. Our last one inspired this video, and it's a new example that we have physical proof of that it may exist. The Mandela Effect is named after the most popular example of the phenomenon. Many believe that Nelson Mandela died while he was incarcerated back in the 1980s. If you ask these people where they discovered the news, they will most likely answer that they read about it in newspapers, watched it on TV, or maybe even learned about it in class. However, Nelson Mandela actually died in 2013. Non-believers think that these instances are only false memories and have concocted theories as to why it's so prevalent, while others believe it happens because of parallel universes that may cause us to shift between overlapping realities. The term Mandela Effect was first coined in 2010 by Fiona Broome. She said that she distinctly remembers hearing about Nelson Mandela's death in prison back in the 1980s, even though that was false. Fiona discovered that there are also a bunch of other people who remembered Mandela's death in the 80s, so she decided to share her memory online. Soon, others shared that they also remembered the same memory occurring. They even recalled that they saw Mandela's funeral on a news clip, even going as far as saying they saw his widow present a eulogy and people doing public memorials for him, despite none of these actually happening. Thanks to Fiona and hundreds of other people on the internet, the Mandela Effect is now well known. People began to search for other false memories from history, which also gave birth to elaborate theories about humans shifting or living in between two or more parallel universes. One universe saw Mandela die in prison, while the other saw him living until 2013. Another famous example is Shazam, a 90s family comedy film in which people remember Sinbad playing the genie. The problem is, the movie never existed. There are no traces of this movie ever happening, and people on the internet have searched high and low for it. I remember when my cousin asked me to name the Genie movie that Sinbad starred in. I told him Shazam, and it blew my mind when he told me it was an example of the Mandela Effect. Interestingly enough, there is actually a 90s movie with a similar description. However, the title was Kazam, and it starred Shaquille O'Neal as the Genie. Similar title, similar concept, and similar bald guys who played a genie, but only one of them is real. So maybe it's not that difficult to understand why so many people, including me, are confused by this. Yet, some people think that Shaq's movie was a blatant rip-off of Sinbad's movie, like Ants and A Bug's Life, while others will even say that they remember watching Sinbad play the role of a genie as a kid back in the 90s. Do you believe Sinbad Shazam actually existed? The famous Fruit of the Loom brand was established in 1851. Today, many of us are still quite familiar with the brand thanks to their underwear, but the funny thing is, people are arguing about its logo. Did it ever have a cornucopia in it? A cornucopia is a horn that has overflowing food or fruits on it, but you won't ever see this on the Fruit of the Loom logo, even if people insist that there was one. If you remember a cornucopia in the logo, you're experiencing the Mandela Effect. There are a ton of arguments about it on the internet. It's a pretty popular example because so many people from older generations are familiar with the company, the logo, and their products. It also doesn't help that Frank West's 1973 album, Flute of the Loom, parodied the brand name and logo. The album art included a representation of the cornucopia that never existed. Even employees of Fruit of the Loom are confused as to what their official logo is. Some employees insist that they remember the cornucopia in the logo, while others know for a fact that it was never included. There are many people who fondly remember reading the Berenstain Bears book series as a child. However, you may be shocked to find out that your favorite childhood book was actually spelled differently. It's not Berenstain, it's Berenstain. There's actually an A in the last syllable, and not an E, and there are a lot of arguments about this one online. People recall seeing the spelling with an E instead of an A, and truth be told, the proof of it is quite confusing. On Twitter, the account The Berenstains is actually the official Twitter home of the Berenstain Bears, and you can go ahead and give that one a follow. There's even an official book that's title is The Big Book of the Berenstain Bears. Even if fans are already aware, they would still insist that the spelling is with an E instead of the A. The spelling with an E is the official title of the series, with fans even presenting proof of books and toys that had Berenstain instead of Berenstain on the logo. They're pretty adamant about proving the truth that the name was just changed recently and that their childhoods weren't lies after all, except for the fact that the bears were named after the authors of the series, Stan and Jan Berenstain, not Berenstain. Uncle Sam is one of the most popular pop culture representations of the United States of America. How do you remember his hat? You'd probably answer that it's a top hat with vertical red stripes, no? Because it looks similar to the American flag, right? But you're wrong. Uncle Sam never had a top hat with stripes. It was just plain white with a single blue stripe and white stars. The famous poster showing America's favorite uncle pointing and sternly saying, "I want you for the US Army," to encourage young men to become a service personnel has been around for a century. The top hat he was wearing in the original poster is half white, half blue stripe with white stars. Unfortunately, because of the Mandela Effect, reiterations of the poster now show red vertical stripes on his hat as well. The poster was actually created by the artist James Montgomery Flagg to get more soldiers fighting on America's side in World War I. The style was proven to be so successful that it was imitated by other artists, and even until now, it's rare to find someone who's not familiar with the character. This is a fun example to ask your grandparents or older people you know. Your grandparents might also remember where they were when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. You might not have been born yet, but you probably remember seeing photos or video clips about that dreadful day. So, how do people remember the assassination? Were there only 4 people sitting in the car? Because, well, it's a 4-door car. Or were there 6 people sitting in because it was a custom limo for the president? Some images on Google suggest there were 4 people. That's how many remember it. But there were actually 6 people sitting in the car. Special Agent Bill Greer was driving the car. Roy Kellerman was sitting in the passenger seat. Governor Connolly and his wife were sitting in the middle row. JFK and Jackie were sitting in the back row. Yet, the replica of the car in the JFK Presidential Library and Museum in Boston is a 4-seater car. Another replica of the car can be found at the Dahl Auto Museum in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and it only has space for 4 people, along with many other photos online suggesting that there was only 4 people in the car at the time of the assassination. Many believe there was only the driver, a Secret Service agent, the First Lady, and John F. Kennedy. Some even remember the infamous Zapruder video of the assassination only having 4 people in the car. How do you remember it? This one might make your head hurt a bit. If you grew up during the era of VHS tapes, you probably owned a few Disney films. Back then, the intro to these VHS tapes only showed the Disney logo on a blue background. You're probably nodding your head and thinking that, yeah, the animation for it included Tinkerbell using her wand to conjure the logo, right? Again, you have it all wrong. Back in the 90s, Tinkerbell wasn't around to magically conjure the Disney logo. She was a more recent addition to the upgraded version, showing a realistic Disney castle with a huge lake and fireworks in the background. Why did Disney suddenly decide to include her? We'll probably never know, but it's more likely because of the Mandela Effect. A lot of people remember Miss Tink, even if she wasn't there, so might as well add a bit of magic and pizzazz by including her. Even if Disney gave way to people's memories, it still inspired arguments from people online. There are even YouTube videos of people trying to recreate the logo that they remembered from their childhood, but they can't quite prove that the logo even existed. What do you think? There are so many other little examples of the Mandela Effect in popular culture. For example, people remember the show being titled Sex in the City instead of its actual title Sex and the City. There are even examples of memorabilia emblazoned with the false title, which further supports other people's memory of it. Queen's hit song, We Are the Champions, is another victim of the Mandela Effect. Many remember the closing lyrics of the song as, "No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world." Except, of the world isn't how the song ends. It just ends on We Are the Champions. People will insist on that last bit of lyrics. Maybe it's just because it fits so well with the closing notes of the song. Rich Uncle Pennybags, or Mr. Monopoly as some remember him, doesn't have a monocle. Go ahead and search through your Monopoly set to find proof. He's just confused for another mascot, the Planter's Mr. Peanut, who also has a top hat, a cane, and the first name Mr. Both fans and non-fans alike remember seeing Pikachu of Pokemon fame having a black mark on the tip of its tail, but if you take a second look at its official photos of the cute pocket monster, his tail is just plain yellow. A lot of fans even depict him having that black mark, despite it never being there. "Luke, I am your father," is the most quoted line from the film Star Wars, with other TV shows and movies referencing it, but it's wrong. Darth Vader never said that line. He actually said, "No, I am your father." And there's another interesting Star Wars related Mandela Effect involving C-3PO. The famous robot isn't actually made up of completely gold. He has a silver leg. What? Even official Star Wars collectibles and memorabilia depict him as solid gold, conveniently forgetting that one of his legs is actually silver. Have you ever noticed that before, Star Wars fans? The most quoted line from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is not in the movie. The evil queen actually never says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" The real line that people misquote is actually, "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" Have you discovered your own examples of the Mandela Effect? This video was inspired by one that Rebecca discovered. Last February, she told Ethan that she felt like Tito the Chihuahua from Oliver & Company had a gold hoop in his ear because she had recently gotten her cartilage pierced. When she went to Google a picture of him to show Ethan, there were no pictures of Tito with his ears pierced. There was only pictures of his left ear with a piece missing out of it. She posted it on Facebook asking if anyone else remembered Tito having an earring, and 11 people replied yes, they did. Some even specified that it was a gold hoop earring in his ear. One person even posted a stuffed Tito toy for sale on eBay that had a gold hoop through his ear, which we were lucky enough to buy. Their Tito clearly has a gold ring in his ear, and after researching more online, it seems like the only pictures of him with the earring are stuffed animals. Did everyone we asked on Facebook all have the same knockoff toy as a kid? Or is this another example of the Mandela Effect? What do you think, strangers? Our memories are so fragile. Are Mandela Effects simply false memories collectively shared by millions of people? Or is there something more sinister going on? Have any of these examples made you question the world around you? Let us know your thoughts and comments in the let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, stay strange.